Clock, call this meeting of the Chelmsford School Committee to order. Can we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. This meeting is being live streamed by Chelmsford Telemedia and posted to the CPS website for interested community members to access and watch. Although we are not allowing for in-person public participation, interested community members were encouraged to submit their names and addresses to Superintendent Lang if they wanted to participate remotely under the public input portion of our meeting. During our public input session, anyone who has joined us through the GoToMeeting platform and expressed an interest in making a comment will be recognized by the superintendent and allowed to speak with the committee. If anyone watching this meeting live has questions or comments to share, they're encouraged to email one of us during the meeting, and we'll read their questions or comments during our second public input session at the end of the meeting. So welcome to this meeting of the Chelmsford School Committee. First order of business is approval of our minutes from our meeting on April 13th. So I'll take a motion.
I move the school committee accept the minutes of the meeting from April 13th, 2021.
Any seconds? Second, okay, Jeff seconds. Any corrections that people would like to? Yeah, Jeff?
Just in the last public comment section, it says Jill Commons, and it should be Comins, C-O-M-I-N-S.
Great. All right, any other corrections on the minutes? Okay, all in favor of approving the minutes? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, so 4-0. Okay, any good news?
I do have one piece of good news. So the Thursdays, I'm going to hopefully get this correct. The Thursdays made it into the nationals of the International Championship of High School A Cappella. So that happened over the vacation weekend. Good news, our middle schoolers are coming back tomorrow for in-person learning. So lots of activity happening at the schools and lots of excitement. And I think Jeff had some good news as well.
I just want to announce that the CHIPS PTO has funded a little free library, which was installed during the April break. Mary Ellen Forte, one of the CHIPS teachers, spearheaded this project. Mary Ellen conducted the research and presented her initiative to the PTO, who backed it unanimously. She then ordered, painted, and decorated and installed the library box with the help of her husband and daughter. The Little Free Library is located to the right of the CHIPS entrance, thoughtfully placed in the fairy garden that was dedicated in memory of Leslie O'Donnell last spring. The CHIPS Little Free Library was established to provide book access for young children in the greater Chelmsford community. As families visit the playground, we encourage them to explore the library box. Preschool books donations are welcome and may be dropped off at CHIPS during school hours. And I'm sure you're all aware the Little Free Libraries is a nonprofit that builds community, inspires readers, and expands books access for all through the global network of volunteer-led little libraries. Through Little Free Library book exchanges, millions of books are exchanged each year, profoundly increasing access to books for readers of all ages and backgrounds. And you'll see some around town. We should be putting one up either this summer or this fall at our house. But it's wonderful, and Mary Ellen did an incredible job. She did all the work, and the PTO backed it. And so now it's loaded with books. So if you happen to be, have your family at the playground, you take a book and leave a book. And it's just, it's a wonderful.
Jeff, they may want to reach out to the Friends of the Library, because at the end of the book sale, they oftentimes have books left over that I'm sure that they would be willing to donate.
I went and got a grab book of preschool so I
Yeah.
could make a donation. So, yeah, that's a good idea. So I'll mention that to them. Thank you, Donna.
Great. All right, anyone else have any good news they want to share? Okay. Sorry, Mike.
Well,
Go ahead.
you want it here, or I can do it here?
Yeah.
So the grab and go was a huge success at the high school. And Lions Roar had a thank you that had a lot of pictures in it. So I hope parents at the high school get a chance to see it. It was just so heartwarming to see everybody be able to get in line, socially distance, do their thing, go outside and be with their colleagues. The number of emails that the parents got who put it together were immense, and parents should realize that there were a lot of thank yous and appreciation. It was really wonderful. The theme was beach, and there were over 50 prizes.
Great.
Wow, good. That's great.
right, anybody else have anything? All right, so we're now to our first public input part of our meeting, but I don't believe we have anybody that requested to speak. Okay, so
No, we
anybody
didn't
get any
receive anything.
emails that? Okay. All right, so we'll move on to new business. First order of business is the announcement of the CHIPS Program Coordinator.
Yes, thank you. We've started our spring hiring for the fall and for July 1st for our next school year. And with us tonight is Megan McGurk, who was recently hired to be our CHIPS Program Coordinator. And Amy Reese, who is our Director of Student Sports Services, is here as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Amy to introduce Megan and welcome her to the team. We're really excited to have you on board. So Amy.
Hi there. It was fitting that we heard that good news about CHIPS with the library, Jeff, so thank you for that. And tonight, I am very happy to introduce Megan McGurk. She has been with us the past 2 years as one of our administrative team here.
Is it working?
I think.
No, we can't hear her.
There's two Amy's.
Well, the other one's on telemedia.
Okay.
I'm gonna glitch on it. Can they hear us on TV?
I think so.
After this.
They can't hear her on TV either.
They can't.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Megan, can you hold for 1 second? We're just having trouble with audio for the viewing audience at home, so just hold for 1 second, we'll come right back to you. Oh. Amy, you hold too. We want to make sure that we get this all straightened out so that when we get to the other presentations as well, it's up and going. We had done a dry run this afternoon, and everything worked well, so.
Of course.
Of course. Just hold on for a couple minutes, please. Hey, John. No, we just started, we're just trying to get the audio to work properly on the video. So, you came at a good time.
Telemedia has no sound.
Do they know why?
Huge crackling and gone. So nobody can hear anything.
They hear us in this room?
No.
Nothing?
Nothing. Did you let them know?
I see
they're
one-time
on hold for a
spending.
second.
New sound system.
They can hear me, but
Right.
are they
Well,
hearing
so-
out for the viewing audience?
No.
Right?
It looks like they have a new thing on it.
All right. Do you want to take a 2-minute recess?
Sure. Why don't we
Officially,
take a
just so that
2-minute
I can go
recess and,
talk with them? All right, we're going to take a 2-minute recess. I know you can hear me on the go-to-meeting, but the people at home aren't hearing any of the conversation. So we're going to take 2 minutes. You may or may not come on or off, so just watch what you say. And then we'll end up coming right back to you, okay? Thanks.
They just
what the link is.
Okay.
Maybe I should just say this because the viewing audience can hear us at this
Right.
point. For some reason, and even the folks at home or the people on GoToMeeting who are trying to connect, for some reason, we started with the video they can see. They just can't hear the audio of you talking. There's some type of a glitch between our wall configuration and the Chelmsford Telemedia being able to put this out. So again, we can't hear you in the school committee room, and you in the viewing audience at home can't hear you. The viewing audience at home can only hear people in this room having our meeting. So unfortunately, what I would recommend is, as a school committee, we continue on with our agenda. Telemedia is trying to work behind the scenes to figure this out. If you folks wouldn't mind, maybe just like standing by for another 15 or 20 minutes or so, I'm just going to reduce my screen so we can go on with our meeting. If they can get it worked out, they'll send me a text. We'll come back out of order and we'll take up your items. If for some reason it doesn't work, I would just recommend, because it's good information and I really want people to hear it, we reschedule something for a future meeting. And then even internally, after this meeting, we've had a lot of these glitches as of late, so I think as a group, we need to just talk about perhaps having people come back in person if they're going to make a statement or they're going to do a presentation. We could set up a safe space in the back of the room. People could come in, make their statements, give their presentation, and then slide out, because our issues seem to be with the third party. When we try to get the third party, say, GoToMeeting, Zoom type function working, it's just not working. And I know it's frustrating for us, it's frustrating for the viewing audience. Fortunately tonight we have staff, but we don't have too many kids, who are on standby. I'd feel really bad, not that I don't feel bad for you. But I just think we should probably talk about that and figure out going forward if we want to just start to return to having some people come in, make their statements, make their presentation, and then they can leave. They don't have to stay for the rest of the meeting. So are we okay with just moving forward? And then we'll come back to
And we are
this
meeting
item.
next week too, so maybe.
Oh, we
can
are meeting
sched-
next Tuesday,
So we
too.
can probably, if we can't get them back in today, probably get them on.
Right.
next week.
Schedule-wise,
Yeah,
we just have to work.
right.
Does that work for you at home on GoToMeeting? All right, I'll check back in with you in about 15 minutes and let you know where we stand. Very, very sorry about this. Okay.
All right, so we'll come out of recess and continue with, I guess, the next agenda item would be the kindergarten entrance waiver policy waiver.
Yeah, so let's skip items 1 and
Right.
2, because that was also going to be addressed by SPED. If we need to, I can go back and do number 2 afterward. 3 is the presentation we'll hold on. For 4 is the kindergarten age waiver. So we'll go to item number 4 for those watching. Would you like to take the whole thing?
Yeah, sure, I can do
So we'll
that.
ask Assistant Superintendent Hirsch to talk about this one.
Sure, so back in February, I had brought forward a policy waiver for parents whose children had turned 6 in August. However, they wanted them to stay in kindergarten because they had not gone to a kindergarten program with everything that was happening with COVID. So we went over a little bit of those details, and we provided that waiver process. Since then, we've had some parents reach out to us, both Jay, myself, wanting to know if that policy is something that was going to stay in place. And typically, we run a policy all the way through the year, make a decision if this is something we'd like to keep forward. However, if we didn't make a decision on something like that right now, these parents are kind of stuck with their planning on what should they do with their child for the 2022-2023 school year. So if this is a policy that we would like to keep in place with the 30, I hate to call it a retention policy, but it is technically a retention policy, with 30 days on the back end for the cutoff date, similar to our first grade policy, where people, if they are 5 years old and they have gone to a kindergarten program and their birthday falls between September 1st and September 30th, we allow them to go to first grade after we've reviewed their report card, make sure that they have a recommendation from their teacher. So we've had some parents reach out to us, because if we are going to keep this policy in place and this a waiver process to allow parents of 6-year-olds with birth dates between August 1st and the 30th to remain in kindergarten rather than first grade, they would need to know now for planning purposes. We also received some outreach from some parents with students whose birth dates fall between July 1st and July 31st, or 30 days? Yeah, 31st, yep. Had to do my little song in my head. If we would extend the waiver beyond August to now be in July and allow those all summer babies this same process. So we have two things on the table now. Do we want to keep the current policy with the extension waiver for going to kindergarten? And do you want to extend it out to July for parents to have that option?
Thoughts?
I haven't heard a lot of feedback on this from people. How many people have reached out to you?
For which one? To keep this current?
Harm in extending the policy, I guess, is a better question.
The one for August 1st to August 30th, there would be really not as much harm. It's a 13-month difference, which we could have on the back end if someone petitions to go into first grade. So that would be in alignment with what we've done for the first grade one. So there would probably be no harm in that. That is something that we would be able to recommend and say this is something we can keep in place. As for the July, what I had spoke about before was that we would be now having 14-month difference between the oldest and the youngest in the class if you go as far as July. So you're extending, we try to keep everybody within 12 months, right? 13 months is manageable, right? That's something that that we all feel comfortable managing. When you start getting into 14, 15 months, so on and so forth, now you're extending the age range for students, and then you're also extending the age range for high school, where you could have 13-year-olds and 19-year-olds in a high school at the same time, so you have a 6-year age span in one building, which also affects some of our upper age limits for our classes. And it's also a content situation where students are exposed to different content, so that was not something that we were recommending moving forward.
The other, I mean, like, I agree with everything Dr. Hirsch said, but I guess what we were hearing from this year is, obviously, this was a little bit of an unusual year.
Mm-hmm.
Some people didn't go to kindergarten. We were kind of giving them that ability to have that option for this year. But I think the parents we've heard from recently, and again, we're probably talking maybe half a dozen to a dozen, not hundreds of parents. The question is, if they're not, because this was going to be a one-year policy just for this year, but if this isn't going to continue for next year, then they have to decide, would they want to enroll their student, even if they don't have to, in kindergarten for the current year, because they then would naturally progress on to first the following year, or skip the kindergarten year this year and know that they're going to go to first grade the following year. So I think that's why the timeliness issue is here. We really hadn't thought about that at the time. We were just thinking help out this year's kids, but we didn't, or families who had the issue. Some, don't have an issue with it, and they would just enroll anyway, in, say, first grade. But we were just trying to provide that luxury. I think the only concern, like we heard of, is once you do it for one particular month, then, the July, people say, well, it's only one more day, or it's a calendar day, could we do it? And then we get June people that, if we did July, that would say, well, can we do June? It's like, how far back do you want to back the age range? Again, because it just affects the span of kids within a grade level. And then again, even if you start 12, 13, 14 months down the line, if you ever did have a student that was then ultimately retained in elementary school, you could be adding another year onto that, and it just compounds as you get up to middle school and to high school. So again, we had some different calls and emails on this. I talked individually to a couple different members, and we just said we'd put it back on to talk about. I think the big original question was, do we keep some type of waiver on the August timeline? And then just again, from that, then if people here were talking about that, why couldn't it be July, or why couldn't it be June? And that's where it just kind of starts to open up and unravel a little bit. So I don't know what you've heard as far as.
So I was going to say, I know that we, had changed, we had voted on this a while back. And, I have heard from some parents who are concerned, this has been a very different type of year, right? And so, we know this, our young kids, either in first grade or kindergarten, may not necessarily have the social emotional skills, to go on, So, the question is, I think from them is, should we consider backing it up, because this has been such an extraordinary year? And, will these kids end up, struggling, as they move forward, because, it's been such a difficult year, and they're not ready.
For this is not just a concern, I think, at the kindergarten level. This is a concern for every grade level that we have. There's a lot of people wondering where are our children's skills, where are they going to lie? So this is something we're looking at for all of our students, pre-K all the way through 12. And we're going to be addressing every single one of those issues as we move along and looking at our pacing and seeing where kids are laying when it comes to their learning and if there was any type of gaps. We're going to have more, obviously more data at the end of this school year when we finish up all of our benchmarking. But no matter what grade level someone's in, I think there's always going to be that concern of, did we miss something given our learning model, whether they were in school with us or remote, or if they went to a different program, different school. So we're going to be looking at that for all of our students. I wouldn't necessarily agree that extending the age is going to suddenly fix that gap for someone.
Maria, I'm sorry, Maria had something?
So one of the things I thought about was that I think it's a good idea to, personally, to continue to extend this waiver, into next year, for the August waiver. The reason I think it's important is because we're doing it for this grade level, for this year. If we continue it in the coming years, then it's going to be a continuous change in terms of the ages potentially going forward, so that we don't have just this one odd year where the ages are going to be quite different going throughout the entire system. So that was one of the reasons I thought this might be a good idea. The second reason I think it's important is because this, coming out of this COVID year, the maturity levels in terms of socialization, the emotional component of it, although we may do some assessments that gear towards that, I think a parent is in a better place as they enter the system to know where their child is than we are. And they've lost a lot because I look at my little nieces and nephews. They haven't seen any of us for over a year. They've been only in contact with their parents. And this is, a very important formative years in terms of socialization and the emotional learning component of life. So for me, I don't see a problem with extending out the waiver. It gives out consistency for parents to make that determination. And also, I think the impact of this year is going to be longer than just on 1 year, this 1 year, for children who have been through these formative years. Now, going back on the July thing, that's a different issue. Because what I thought is maybe for this year, do it for July, but going forward, it's just 1 month. And but maybe for children for this year, it really has an impact because there were quite a few who might be impacted. But going forward, people would know exactly what the policy is, and then it's only with August. Those were my thoughts.
My thought, I have no problem with the, having the August thing continue on, because again, it does give people choice this year and, what they're gonna do with their kids. I am a little concerned with going to July, because as you said, if you go to July, then somebody in June wants to. And, one of the reasons why I'm okay with the August is it does give people a choice this year. If you're just doing July for 1 year, then you only want to help in one group. So, and plus, one of the things in the reopening DESI guidelines is they suggested you don't make changes to your retention policies, including your kindergarten policies. And, I think, again, I don't have a problem with the August and continuing that particular policy. I don't know if it's something we want to do to go to July or June, or, because again, you help one group of people, but then the next group of people, are going to feel that, they should also have that same advantage, so. So I guess we have two issues.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say, like, process-wise too, we just felt like tonight, let's surface this and let's talk about this and see what the committee was hoping to accomplish. And then we do have a meeting next Tuesday, so based on your input tonight and kind of direction, we would go back and work with council to make sure that they draft the revised policy for you, and then present it formally next Tuesday for a vote. So tonight, we're trying to get a sense for, like, how you'd like the policy structured so that we can then bring it back and have it be worked on. You can get it Friday to review over the weekend, and then you would actually vote on it next Tuesday. So that's kind of the direction we're.
So why don't we take it one at a time? So we have the issue of, do we want to extend the August 1st to August 30th that we approved earlier this year? You know,
Does that mean we were going to put that August in just for the next 2 years or permanently?
Well,
permanently.
permanently.
Permanently. It would just become our new policy would
Yeah.
be, you know, if you turn, whatever the age is, between August.
Right, it would be the opposite of your first grade policy, waiver process.
Right, so it would be what we have as a new policy, except it wouldn't say, you know,
Just for the COVID year.
For just this COVID year, it would just be, that would be our policy.
Thank
So does anybody have any issues with extending that beyond this year?
Not that one.
Because again, it's a two-part thing, so we can talk, so Donna, you have,
No.
Okay.
I thought we were gonna just talk about it tonight and,
yeah, no, but I'm just talking
Okay.
about, yeah, we would, because we still have to have the.
yeah, and I think I
latest-
was just, still thinking.
Yeah.
Want some time to look it over and stuff.
Okay, so, but
On the
is-
surface, I do not.
Yeah, so as far as that, everybody feels comfortable with extending that policy beyond this upcoming August to be our new policy?
Yeah, if it's a permanent policy, then
Right.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then the second issue is, do we go back and, and extend it to July or whatever date? Or do we just keep it at the August 1st?
I mean, I've had experience with that, and Linda brought it up. One of the things is when you push it back, then all of a sudden, it's like you just push it back a little bit more, and
Right.
then it becomes a self-fulfilling thing. So I'm not necessarily supportive of the July piece.
I agree.
But I would like to think about it a little bit and get some feedback, but yeah.
We would need to, if we're gonna make a change, we need to have it.
Yeah, again, we're hoping to kind of have a conversation tonight, feel you out and see where you're at. And then we'd go back with Andy and work on drafting whatever the revisions to the policy would be. You redline it and then bring it back to you next Tuesday for review.
For the July change, the question about, is it for this year, the impact this year? Are there several people who are impacted by that, the change to July? That you've been approached by?
It would be, they would want that policy, I'm assuming for the 2021, 2022 school year, they would like to go to kindergarten. I mean, 2021, 2022 school year, they'd like to go to kindergarten rather than first grade.
Okay, but is it a few families, a few kids that are impacted by whether we don't?
As of right now, I mean, yeah, there's about maybe 5, 6 or so. I haven't heard more beyond that.
Have you gotten requests from people with June?
I have had some
Yeah.
requests from people
It
from
just
June.
It just
too,
keeps
so-
backing up.
Yep, I've had like 3 requests from June people, and this was even prior to us talking about it tonight. When the August piece came into play, I'd already heard from June people.
And the only other can of worms you open up is there are people who have already registered, not thinking that this was even potential. So I don't know if it was there, if they would rethink something either. And that would then just kind of throw off and skew our numbers, not for next year, but just going forward. That's just one of the operational things we're kind of struggling with.
Okay.
All right. So, I think everybody's comfortable with the August thing, making it permanent. I prefer not to delve into the July area. I don't know other people's opinions.
It's really early. I mean, that's, yeah. No.
Yeah.
I'm generally not right now, but I want to spend some
I
time.
mean, we could always, this can come back up at another point too, but,
Right.
but as far as getting ready for next week and drafting a new policy statement, is anybody strongly pushing for a change to July or June or summer or?
My only concern, and, we've talked about this, is it's just been an extraordinary year, and, I think that Marie is right. The impact is going to be felt for many years forward, and whatever we can do to mitigate that impact, I think that that's something that we should be taking a look at.
I'd like to think about it, but if you're gonna draft something, and let's say we all reconvene again and decide that, July is a good month, it's just changing the name of the month. So, in other words, Do you know what I mean? The draft is gonna be easy to.
Well, it is and it isn't, because it will affect other things,
Yeah, people that have already
They'll have to
registered.
make the decisions, yeah.
so.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Yeah, there's going to be a rippling effect.
There's a ripple, because we've already had kindergarten registration, we've already had our 2 sessions. We were actually very well subscribed, our numbers were very good, which is excellent, so we can plan. And so we've had a number of families who probably fall within these timeframes that have just registered for, kindergarten or first grade based on this. And again, I don't know if they would rethink what grade level if they had the option. They haven't requested it at this point. We're dealing with, again, the half dozen to a dozen or so people right now, the Augusts, that have gotten it. And I just don't know, again, how far back you keep going. It just, if you did do July, then there are some in June, we know. And if you did do June, I'm sure there's gonna be someone in May. And they just miss it by a day or two. And I get it, like, to that family, that means the most. But it's hard to, like, not have some definitive line to work by for planning, and even just like operationally when we get into school, to having that age span be too great in grade levels. So,
All right, do we want to take a formal vote on,
We already did.
we already, but,
We already took a vote on this from before.
no, but to change.
Well, you'd have to just change,
Right,
what you're
so-
doing
so
is
we
just
could take a
changing it, it's not
vote
for
to
1
have-
year.
we-
Gotcha.
I don't know if it has to be a formal
That's
vote.
probably what's gonna happen, is that we would be removing, and I would
Right.
talk to, obviously, Andy about that, you would be removing the COVID-19 provision for the 2021-2022 school year. Because your current policy is that up until you get to the red, so you can see the provision for waiver for first grade entrance. We would just probably make policy waiver for kindergarten retention, and change some of the wording around that.
I guess we're not voting on the policy per se, as we're voting on whether we want to ask the
yeah, just to give us some
attorneys
direction.
to move forward with this. And we could do it as 2 different votes, and do, if we all agree or don't agree on locking in the August as our policy, as, could be 1 vote, and then we could do the other vote on changing the month if you want, or we could just go from here. I don't know what everybody else's thoughts are on. Right.
It seems consensus is to at least
Right,
have
right, no, I agree
August
with that.
be like part of
Yeah.
our regular
To adopt,
policies.
yeah.
So that's an option. We can go back and talk to Andy about that. And I would just say, if anything changes in your mind between now and next week, if you were to reach out to me, I know collectively we can't have the discussion, but if you reach out to me individually, we could talk about asking Andy to like research what we would need to do, just so we're not unable to make a decision next week if there's consensus, if that works for you.
That makes sense, yeah, yeah. Everybody comfortable with that? So we'll have them draft
Yep.
the first part of it, and then we can
Think about.
consider about it, okay?
Okay.
Great,
All right, good.
all right. You want to check on those
Thank you.
guys?
Yeah, do you
Yeah,
want me to go check?
we'll do the next item, will you go check? Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right. So moving on to item number 5 this evening, this is the MSBA Statement of Interest timeline. So just for your knowledge, we had actually applied back in 2000 for our high school application again, and we hadn't heard with COVID. There was really no activity last spring. The MSBA announced just a couple of weeks ago that they were going to open up the submission process again. It's a little bit of a delayed timeline. Usually it's an April submission. Now it's going to be a June submission. And they're accepting what they call core applications. So those are the larger renovations, addition, new school building projects. So we then were notified, ironically, the day after, that the high school project didn't move forward, which wasn't really a surprise to us. And I just made a couple of recommendations to you. I think, given the timeline of this, and I still think it's very worthwhile moving forward with the high school application and having that be our priority project. So I would, again, just trying to get your consensus around this. I would like to tweak our application for the high school project to prepare it for the necessary votes we would need to take and the select board would need to take to be able to submit our application again by the June 25th deadline. I will say, just even for the viewing audience, it's not unusual for a high school project application to have to be submitted for between 5 and 10 years before it actually rises up into the pipeline. So I know that, we've been denied now 3 times, and then technically we lost a year in 2020. But our application is still relatively fresh. There will be a little bit of work I have to do to retweak it, but I'm certainly willing and able to do that. But I would do that for June 25th. And then secondarily, I think it would make sense to starting this summer, as we're kind of coming out of COVID and getting back into hopefully more normal school year, to actually step back, maybe engage. Durham Whittier was the group that had done the visioning with us, put together our short and long-term capital plans. They're the ones that helped us with our visioning sessions and kind of strategizing as a community what we should do. I think it might make sense to either see if they're available or another firm might want to come back and work with us. And it's been, 4 years, 4.5 years at this point, to take a look at what we've actually done, because we've accomplished quite a bit of capital projects in line with the plan that we put together with them. See what we've actually done, see where we're at school-wise, that even if there's still consensus, we could hold some kind of visioning sessions if we could. If there's still consensus to move forward with the high school application, are there other short-term strategies over the next, 2 to 5 or 6 years we could be looking at? There were some other middle school options. Elementary school option-wise, there really wasn't too much because we added the modular buildings. But I think it would actually be helpful to re-engage ourselves in the conversation, but also the community, so that if we do end up getting, or if or when we get invited, it's not like we haven't touched the project or we haven't talked about the larger scale initiative for a number of years. So I throw those two things out to you for thought. One, kind of making sure that we want to have me spend some time and re-up that core application, which I'm happy to do. And then secondly, kind of refocus, re-engage some of the work beginning in the summer, and that could actually almost be one of our goals, looking at moving forward into the 21-22 school year. So
I mean, is there any hope for the high school?
yeah, I do absolutely think there's hope. I think it is a brand-new competition every year based on who happens to apply during that year. And just because of the scale and the size of a high school project, there are very few high school projects statewide that can get approved in any given year because they take so much of the capital money that's available. So if we were advancing, say, an elementary project, we would have a much better chance and a quicker chance of getting approved, but that really didn't fall within our capital plan. Well, our plan really focused around a new high school building, because if we were going to get community support for really one large-scale project, and we didn't feel like we would potentially have the support to do multiple, or even the funding, to be able to support multiple, we could get the best bang for our buck out of one large project, and that was the one that included, say, a new high school, merging the two middle schools into the current Chelmsford High School, because that's really our newest building in town, and then having the Parker become an elementary school to help with some of our enrollment needs in the future, being able to take McCarthy offline and reusing that for some field space and redoing a whole complex over there. But we haven't actually talked about this in a number of years, and as close as it is to me, I will run into people in the community that don't know what our plan is or what we really talked about a few years ago. So that's why I think it would be worthwhile and timely to kind of start having those conversations again, so that everyone's on board and understands what we were trying to do. But I think it was John's point, I do think it's still worthwhile to apply for the high school project. And again, it can take communities 5 to 10 years. It's just a matter of your school being the one that's in the need at that particular point in time, and them having capacity to be able to pull off, say, 2 or 3 high school projects, which again, just in the scale of things, are pretty significant.
Other thoughts?
I just want, would it be worth doing this, the public input sessions, as part of our strategic planning as well? Because
Yeah,
we need to finish that too. But to kind of, roll it together.
Yeah, I think this group really specializes in the facility aspects of it. When we were doing our strategic planning, there was a whole section dedicated to kind of facilities and operations. So this group could almost really help us flesh out that piece of the strategic plan.
Okay.
And we might engage a separate group to help us with kind of the district strategic planning and visioning. It wouldn't necessarily be this group because they're really so honed in on just the facilities and the MSBA project. But I think we'd get a lot out of them, helping us flesh out our facility capital planning piece of our strategic plan.
Okay.
Would this group be looking at where the town is going in terms of population and all of that? Okay.
Yeah, that was a piece of the
I
first
think
one.
that that's a great idea.
Because we had done a whole student enrollment projection, and that's something we update annually with NASDAQ.
Right.
So we would still have that piece. Yes, that's absolutely a piece of this.
That would be good. I think there's a lot of changes also. The census numbers are going to be coming out and so on. Maybe that would help with some of this information that we need. That's great.
And it could tie into the strategic plan. It could really go nicely.
I do think that we owe it to the public to be reviewing this periodically, because, if the year comes that we're approved, we want this to be in the forefront of people's thinking and planning. We don't want to catch them, off guard or surprise, because, we've been applying for so many years.
Right.
So I think whatever we can do, to help people understand what our goal is, what our plan is, as we're moving forward in this, I think the better off we're going to be.
I agree.
So I think for this year, and given the short time frame to redoing the high school SOI makes the most sense,
Yeah.
because we have to have it in by June, so it's not like we can switch gears at this point. Bringing Doran Whittier in to take a look again and see, and also, and then I know we talked about doing this before, sitting down and talking with MSBA and just letting them know so to them, it's a high school, they look, well, how come they're doing a high school? They have this middle school that's 20 years older, but they, so they understand the whole picture, and to see if that whole picture changes their mind, or if they just say, no, we're just doing it based on this building, because if that's the case,
Right.
then maybe we do need to go and change to a middle school or something different, because, if we're just spinning our wheels,
Yeah.
based on what they see, then it's really not worth it. But if we can paint the whole picture for them, then that's a different thing.
I think we can make a very compelling argument if we do take the time to do that. Just in my experience with the MSBA, if we weren't to submit for the high school again this time, that would throw a red flag.
Right.
Because if we didn't actually go through the whole process again with like a designer or a planner and a visioner, and then all of a sudden we prioritized a middle school or an elementary school, that's gonna trigger the MSBA to say, well, how all of a sudden, in 2 months' time, could they have done this? Are they just trying to get a project? Does it really tie into what the long-term need of the community is? So I really wouldn't recommend doing that. And there's an incredible amount of time that goes into these applications. The high school one, I can work on and I can update by June. I honestly would not be able to create another application by June for the submission and have it really have any substance. So I think I can manage the high school application. And I think it really is the project we want to advance and keep as our priority. But I think in the summer and going into the fall, if we then kind of take a relook with the whole community about this, I agree. We would never want to catch someone off guard with such a large-scale project. And we might even be in a position come, say, like a fall town meeting, or certainly by springtime meeting, to give an update even to town meeting, so that they know,
It's
what
a good
our,
idea.
what our plans are.
When we submit our application, and the other high schools submit their application, and I know that they only choose a few, is it based on the need at that particular point of, so for example, are they looking at the condition of the high school buildings? Are they looking at the needs of the district? What are they doing,
Which is hurting us a little bit. The first look is at the facility itself that you'd be replacing, right?
Okay.
So they look at Chelmsford High School and compare, and again, even objectively, the schools that have been funded are in a lot worse shape than Chelmsford High School. We've done a very good job, and the town has done a good job of maintaining that space.
Yep.
So we've got to kind of get past that initial kind of paper look at the high school and get more into the story about how, as a community, this makes the most sense. But no, the big, right out of the gate, they're looking at condition, physical condition of the building, also community need. Again, I think we do make a compelling argument, but we haven't been able to kind of get out of that just existing building condition phase yet.
We've done a good job maintaining our buildings.
Right. That's the problem, right? We just,
Well,
Well,
it's
and
only-
our enrollment really hasn't changed.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, that would be another trigger,
Right.
right? If you had increased enrollment and you had a capacity issue, and we don't at the high school. So, the building is in good shape. It's our newest building. It doesn't have a capacity issue. That's hurting our application.
But when you look down the line, you look at McCarthy's really not equipped to be a middle school, in the current day and age. And even Parker is more of an elementary school type of setup. Those are the things that we know, right? But it's how do we get the message to them? And that's gonna, why it'll help us in the big picture. I mean, that's where we're getting hurt a little bit, I think.
Right.
So,
Do you think that COVID and the fact that there's been so much money in grants and so on to update HVAC systems and so on, that will have a huge impact on this committee and how it makes decisions going forward?
I truly don't know, and I think, again, it's just gonna matter, like, how much money individual communities receive to do some of those upgrades. Like, in our case, the money isn't wasted. So like at Chelmsford High School, we are spending a significant amount of money on HVAC upgrades and things along those lines. But that building wouldn't be knocked down, right?
Right.
So I think we can kind of stress that as a community, we've invested money in buildings that we want to repurpose, right? We don't want to demolish it and start from scratch. We need to make that kind of argument in our statement. So like, that's something that now, like, I submitted the last application pre-COVID. So I've got to go in and spend some time and talk about like what COVID has meant to the school and
Right.
our facilities and whatnot. So yes, that piece does have to be addressed. And I think we could do it in a way that says we've wisely spent the money that we've received to be able to support and keep that building going. We'd want it to keep going, even if we were given the opportunity for a new school. And we've got to somehow start to better weave in the fact of our aging building, you know, McCarthy, which is really the more aging of the two, and the fact that Parker really is more designed to be an elementary school than a middle school. So that's the argument that we have to start to, I think, better weave in. And that it's going to be, you know, last year it just didn't happen because of COVID, but, you know, meeting with the MSBA, kind of making our pitch so that they better understand our project. You know, working with our state reps who've been very good, you know, we've met with them, we've explained the project to them, but we need to do that publicity piece and a little bit of that promotional piece, you know, to really kind of lobby for our project,
Okay.
so.
Do we have to take a formal vote to
We
request?
don't, I mean,
Okay.
I get consensus-wise, I feel
Everybody okay
we
with
wanna move
resubmitting the
forward.
high school?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So I'll work on that, bring back the votes in relatively short order, and I'll work with Town Manager Cohen to make sure we get the select board votes as well. And I'll update you as we go.
Great.
All right.
Thank you.
Linda, do you have an update on the,
Tom Peterson's here from Telemedia, and he's trying to work on it. He said he was gonna pop in when he believes he can test it. But right now, it seems to be going in and out, so I don't know how much longer you'd like to.
would the committee object to releasing the
No,
individuals
we
who
can
would
try to
come
reschedule
today?
for next meeting.
And then we'll either reschedule for next meeting or schedule a time, maybe where they can just pop in and say hello. All right, let me
That would be great.
do that.
I'm gonna text them and let them know, because sometimes the sound's going out for them. Oh, hold on.
Oh, right.
Hold the phone, everybody.
Oh, God.
Tom Peterson's here.
Can you do this on it's not gonna work. Can you do it on like your regular computer and turn your volume up?
You know what we're gonna do? We're gonna just punt it, and we're gonna have them come next Tuesday
Okay.
to a regular meeting. So we'll have a
Okay.
week to figure it out.
Okay,
But, no, I appreciate it, Tom.
okay.
Is there anything
you,
in
Tom.
those presentations that we need to, like the coordinated program, wait till next?
It can wait till next
Okay,
time, but if you'd
yeah.
like, I don't mind. We can either have it wait, or I can do it. It's not a
We can
big.
just wait. all right?
Wanna wait?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, there's nothing time sensitive.
Right, exactly. Okay.
I think actually the people may have left. I can't,
I'm letting them
all
know.
right, I can't blame them. So I'll follow up with them, and we'll get rescheduled for next week. All right.
All right.
He said, we can't hear Jay.
I just texted them all and just told them that we're releasing them.
Oh, they can't hear me?
They can't hear you, so I can,
Who's that?
Amy.
She knows.
I know.
She's just she was giving us a
Okay.
running dialogue of what was happening.
I know, but she just said she can't hear Jay.
All right.
All right, so we'll revisit those presentations next week. Okay. All right, so next item is budget report.
Joanna, would you mind reviewing the third quarter budget report with us?
So we're gonna talk about the third quarter, so that's July through March. The first item in your packet is the memo, and using the same format each quarter now, to talk about the overall variances, favorable and unfavorable. And then there's the year-to-date budget report with the detail by DESI function code, grant revolving fund summary, and a student activity account summary. And then after that, the superintendent's going to talk about our projection, and then we're going to talk about budget transfers. So things haven't changed too much since last quarter. The variances that came about early on are sticking with us. And the major one is the favorable variance in the classroom teacher labor category. that one is still, the overall category is favorable by 542,000. And the main reasons for that are we have a little bit of savings in the lane change category because not everyone reached their goal of the higher degree, so that's a little bit favorable. And then the same with filling a vacancy. We budget at a master step 3, but the actual is whoever took the position. So if they came in less than that, we'd be favorable. And sometimes the internal transfer into those positions are at a higher step. And that all nets out to be favorable overall. The other reason we're favorable is for approved unpaid leaves of absence. It's been a lot of those this year for a lot of the traditional reasons of, maternity to untraditional of they need to stay home with their families this year. And then that carries into the specialist teacher categories too. We have the regular general education and then the specialist teachers. The next category is the special ed tuitions. And this is just a reminder of how we record these each year. The punchline is we're favorable in this category for a few reasons. One is we thought we would have $5.4 million of special ed tuitions cash out the door, and it's actually less. It's our projection is 4.5 million, and that's actually a good news story because more students are staying in district and not going out for placements. And then we have had some things where families just move and we're no longer fiscally responsible. We're also favorable because the Valley credit that we budgeted came in greater than planned. And then we also are favorable because we had thought we were going to prepay $962,000 of special ed tuitions in fiscal 20, and we ended up paying more, closer to $1.3 million. The next little chart shows kind of the comparison of what we just talked about, what our original budget was and all the offsets, and I have it titled Early Current Outlook and how things are going to shake out. And when we're all said and done, it looks like that particular category is going to be like 1.3 million favorable. And I looked at last quarter's report. At that time, my projection was like 1.2 million favorable, and the difference was more students did leave. The last category is I just update you on the school choice fund and then the offsets that we use for the one-to-one initiative for grades 5 and 9 and 6 through 10, the leases of the Chromebooks. So our projection is that that fund will end the year still with close to 1.9 million available to keep funding these leases of the Chromebooks for hopefully forever. Any questions on the narrative?
Anybody have any questions so far? Circuit breaker and all that is,
Okay, so circuit breaker, that's kind of in here. We are at the cap.
right.
So if you go to the kind of the grant and revolving fund summary, it's kind of the, yep, that one. Okay, so circuit breaker, I gotta get my glasses on for this one. We're gonna have to do, make it a little bigger. Sorry. Okay. are projecting, actually, I have this written in my narrative, excuse me. Okay. We are going to be receiving 2.33 million in circuit breaker revenue this year. That is our cap. So therefore, we have to transfer out close to the 3.125 million that we budgeted for this year. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's just kind of, okay.
Yep, so we're watching that. The only thing that could happen is we could get extra circuit breaker money, which we're not aware of yet, but that's something that DESI could do. But right now, we're forecasting that I'm gonna have to do an offset of 3.125 million, which is what we budgeted all along.
Okay. So the cap is set on your current, what your current.
You cannot go over your current year
Okay.
allocation.
Gotcha.
So then on the grant and revolving fund summary, the top part are the grants. And we still have a few from fiscal year 20 that we're wrapping up. And we have all the 21 grants. And then we have other private grants. And then down below are the revolving funds. So any questions on grants and revolving funds?
We just, on the Munis report, I just want to, on page 18,
Yep.
there was other charges, EXE. I wonder what that was and why that was
Page what?
18 on the Munis report.
Yep, sure.
And the percentage used was where it was. If that's something that's
Oh, the 1,500%.
1,500%, yeah.
I see it.
That's just jumped out at me, that's a.
Oh, under custodial?
It's page 18, so I don't
Yeah.
know what's, I like to, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Oh, okay, yes. So that, we are budgeting, we only budget a small, this is in custodial.
Yep,
We are coding the extra labor that our internal employees are performing for the cleaning services in that line.
Okay.
And we decided to put that there just in case we could transfer it to another funding source, such as the town COVID relief grants or another school COVID relief grant. It would be easy to quantify. If we didn't do that, it would just go up above in the regular custodial salaries line. And in the end, if we end up, I actually kind of like it there because this is kind of a unusual year, and this won't continue on, hopefully, for years to come. So we will know that extra, right now it's like 24,000 of internal labor is unique to extra COVID cleaning by our employees this year.
okay, because there was a couple, there was one, and there was one on another page, but I didn't know if that was going to be stuff that's covered by grants or not, and it seems like that's the case.
Right.
Because there was another one on page 19 on general maintenance, so same.
Exact same
type of
thing.
yeah.
Yep, I'm trying to put these one-time things this year in a unique category so that when we look year over year, we'll go, why did that go up that year
Okay.
and come way back down?
Yeah, I mean, overall, the budget looks great.
Yeah,
Some of
no.
those numbers just jumped out real quick. I
Yep,
wanted
good
to
question.
make sure, okay.
Yep.
All right, other questions? Okay.
No, just, and the student activity
Great,
funds.
okay, and yeah, the 3 student activity accounts, the high school is at 246,000, and then all the sports clubs and teams and student activity groups. And then the McCarthy has $18,470 in their different clubs, and the Parker has $46,762 in their different clubs. not a lot of activity this year from a revenue and expense standpoint in the clubs.
Did we ever resolve that travel issue?
Thank you.
Oh,
I was
sorry.
just gonna ask that.
No, you know what, we have not.
Okay.
And the club advisor from the high school actually emailed me to just check for an update. So I'll just check in with Andy for you, and I can shoot you an email when he follows up with me.
Okay.
Because we do have some of those people graduating this year, I think.
Yeah.
Probably, it's likely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so.
No, I will follow up.
Sorry, I stole your question, Donna.
No, I'm glad that you brought it up because it's been on my mind and, you know, I don't want to leave it hanging after these kids have graduated if possible. I don't know what to do.
Right.
So.
I concur.
All right, any other questions on clubs or revolving accounts or budget in general? All right, looks like we're in good shape. Thank you for all the hard work.
Thank you.
Always, always.
Yes.
No, overall, obviously, no issues on personnel, non-personnel. I think our revolving funds are in great shape. You know, a lot of work obviously goes into it, but no issues this year. I think what's going to be interesting, as Joanna mentioned, it really does make a lot of sense to quantify those extra charges to COVID in a specific account and not just sprinkle it through the budget, because it's very hard to track that way. So as, you know, there's still opportunity, even like from the state, as well as we're in very good financial shape right now, but even beyond that, if there's a way for the state to pick up some of the costs of this and for us to be able to reallocate our own money to do something else with it, we'll certainly do that. We'll be able to quickly quantify and be able to track that. So, no, that piece of it I think is very good. If we want to move on to the next report, which is just the,
Actually, can I just
Oh, yeah.
follow up on something you had mentioned about personnel? Because that was a concern from the finance committee, I think.
what was
So
that?
we're not adding any new personnel, just to, I know, correct, for the next year.
For
but-
next year?
For next year.
No, we have no new personnel
Right.
in the budget for next year.
But we will be replacing people that
Yeah, we've already
Yeah.
started our
Right,
hiring
okay.
process, yeah.
So when we see the changes and we see the personnel reports, just so that people understand, it's not that we're adding new people, we're just replacing positions that have already existed.
Correct,
Okay.
correct.
all right.
Yeah, the only, and again, you will see, we did hire some interim staff to help
That's,
us out.
yes, thank you, I was just gonna go there.
Yeah, we
So-
definitely did that to help us out through the end of June.
Right.
And we have more than enough in our own budget allocation to be able to pay for that.
Okay.
Some extra para support within the buildings,
Right.
lunch and recess aides to be able to help out as we're going back full-time. So the schools have hired some extra staff. I will tell you, though, even with the extra hiring we've done, I think we're still under like the total FTE because we had so many open positions this
Okay.
year that we just weren't able to fill.
Okay.
But we've actually had, you know, like lunch and recess aides was a category we had a hard time filling this year.
Right.
But where kids are now going back full-time, a lot of the mothers and fathers who happen to serve that role can
Right.
also come back to work. So you will see some late-year hiring to help us through June.
Right.
But no, FTE-wise for next year, our budget was actually, you know, net equal.
Right.
So we weren't adding new positions.
Right.
We're deep into the hiring process, so, you know, known retirements and resignations and things along those lines. We're already trying to hire now for the fall,
Right.
but no net increases.
I just wanna make sure that that was clear to people.
Yeah.
All right, other questions? Maria?
But out of the grants, if we need to, we can add positions to help us with transition back into school and so on for next year?
Yes, I would just say, like, within the local budget, we're not adding new positions for
Right.
next year.
Okay.
There are a number, and I think, that, and rightfully so, like the town, or even like, say, town meeting would look at that, largely because of the health insurance package costs.
Right.
I don't think people are concerned that we're adding bodies, it's just the town pays for our health insurance. So if we're gonna add a full-time body in the school side, they have to pick up the
Right.
tab, so that's why we always coordinate that. When we talked about hiring like some additional like tutors and interventionists for next year, those are largely part-time staff,
Okay.
so they don't carry a benefit package. So we do have, Donna, I want to make sure, like, we do have line items to add those type of positions.
Right, right.
But they're not full-time positions that would carry the benefit package.
Right.
It would be hourly employees
Right.
to really go in and provide like targeted assistance and supports.
Right.
That's in the budget.
No, and I understand that, and I think that that's great that we're doing that, but I think the last 2 years, it's been, has come up at the finance committee.
Well, we were adding the last couple of years.
Right, and I just wanted to make sure that we were clear on what we were doing. I know we discussed it, and I know we also talked about it at the finance committee
Yep.
meeting, but I just wanted to make sure that people understood that.
Right.
And that's not counting those other interventionists.
So overall, as we move towards, you know, kind of our budget forecast for the year, I will say, Joanna has put this together. It's the second little spreadsheet in the next report. I will just say that, we're still 2 months left in the fiscal year, so things do change a little bit. I'm not anticipating drastic change, but there is always room for a little bit of wiggle room. But overall, as Joanna mentioned in the quarterly report, we're looking very good within our personnel accounts. We're under-expended, and even our non-personnel accounts at this point. To the point of approximately, if we had to estimate today, a little over $3 million in, excess funding at the end of the year. And as I laid out in the memo to you, what we typically do is a series of kind of one-time purchases. So these would be different projects, and what we've tried to tackle is actually a capital project that might not have been able to be funded through the capital plan. So if we're able to knock that off our list now, it can also then come off the town's list in the future. Curriculum materials, the things that we try to stay away from with the one-time purchasing are things that are gonna have recurring costs. Or if you spend money now, you're gonna have to spend money again next year to continue something. So let's say it was like, personnel is a perfect example. So if we're gonna add a body or in a position now that you're also gonna have to fund in '22, then that would have a cost. That wouldn't be a one-time cost. So my strategy, what I kind of laid out here in the memo to you, I think would make some sense, is to earmark about half of the available funds toward some one-time purchases. And we have a list we can talk about, and we're obviously still kind of fine-tuning that. I'm not asking you to take any action on that tonight. We would work that through for our next meeting. And try to almost save about the other half to be able to help out next year in fiscal '22 to, again, when we identify what some of those needs are gonna be, whether it's academic or social emotional support needs or whatever, to free up some money in the fiscal '22 budget to be able to help with that. The way to do that, obviously, school committees have limited ways to actually kind of carry money over from one year to another year. One of the allowable functions, and this is something we did last year, was prepaying special ed tuitions. And then by doing that, if we prepaid $1 million to $1.5 million in prepaid tuitions this year, that would technically free up money in tuitions for next year that you can reallocate within your budget when we know what those targeted needs are, to be able to, say, add interventionists or tutors or whatnot that we need. We just have to be conscious that even that funding needs to be one-time spending. It wouldn't be that we're going to add a position like to Donna's earlier. We wouldn't go adding positions next year with that funding because we wouldn't necessarily be able to sustain it in '23. We would only want to be able to sustain it in '22. So that was the general take. And again, Joanna had kind of put together your macro accounts to show you, which really do line up with the budget report itself. It's personnel, largely because of salaries that we just have not been able to expend because we've had openings. Special education tuition, we've got to make some expenditures there, reallocate some funding. Some savings in transportation. And we're actually still in negotiations with the transportation company around that, and we're gonna have to finalize something between now and the end of the year. But if we had to, close the books today, this would be an idea of where that projection would be. And again, my recommendation would be to use about half of that funding for one-time spending and use about half of that funding next year to be able to help fill some of the gaps that we're gonna identify between now and over the summer for our staff and students as they return in the fall. So conceptually, I was just, hoping to have a little discussion about that. Obviously, answer any questions you had in the context of Joanna's projection and third quarter report. And then we have started to put together a little list of some one-time expenses. We could talk through that, answer any questions you may have. That's still a working document. What we had done the last time is conceptually, again, talked about the projects. Joanna then went back and actually lined up the different account transfers that would be necessary, and we'd present them for a formal vote at a future school committee meeting. But we kind of earmarked the different schools where some of the one-time spending would be allocated. And again, we can kind of talk that through and tweak that as we go. But this was our first pass in working with all the different building administrators and department coordinators. Brian with a capital plan and trying to knock off a lot of capital projects if we could, that are kind of quick and easy hits with the one-time money. So happy to talk, again, just conceptually about the spending plan, see if you were support that or in agreement with it, have any questions about it, and discuss how we might like to proceed.
So has this already been vetted, or is this like the first run at it?
The projection?
know, like, oh, this whole list?
We've been working on it internally for
Okay.
about 2 months.
Okay, so it's been, yeah, it's kind
Yeah,
of.
no,
vetted
so
out.
this had good representation from all the different building principals, assistant principals, department coordinators. We usually start a process right after the first of the year where people in the departments talk about different needs that they have as we're getting ready for the budget process. A lot of the stuff didn't make the cut in the budget process, obviously, and we'll kind of take another look at it when we have some one-time money. So, no, this has been vetted through that. There are a bunch of projects that we're still working with vendors on or contractors on to try to hammer out what the numbers are, so that's why we don't have a definitive for you tonight. Those are marked TBDs, but we would finalize that work this week, and, you know, whatever projects we have finalized, we'd probably bring forward to you next Tuesday, so we could at least start the process. And if there's still some projects that are hanging out there, they might come back to you at the second meeting in May. But we want to try to resolve this in May to be able to get some of these projects committed, because the window for the purchasing, we would want to actually have happen between now and the end of the school year. So we want to also pick projects that aren't going to linger into the next school year. In summer projects, we really only have July and August to work with, because then, you know, we don't fully still know what the fall is going to look like in the schools. But we want to take advantage of the open time and space.
Any thoughts?
So I noticed that the, I think it's the small, or is it the small auditorium, small lecture hall? McCarthy is on this?
Yes.
Okay. So that was one of the capital, I'm sorry?
No, I was going to say, that was one of the projects, remember, we were trying to do last year?
Right,
At the same time, we were doing the auditorium,
okay,
and we just didn't have the funding for it.
okay. I like it here. Is there any, what else was on the I can't remember what was on the capital plan that we couldn't do.
All the tennis courts.
HVAC stuff was on there.
Oh, yeah, I remember
There
the
was, remember there was
HVAC.
like it was HVAC, but
Yeah.
it was like the clean the ductwork
Yeah,
and
yeah.
things like
Right,
that.
right.
But a lot of that got tackled in the HVAC improvements we
Okay.
already did. There were a couple of smaller projects, like some VCT repairs in the schools, but they were really small numbers. Brian is still
Tiles.
working on those.
Yeah.
You know, we've had like, within our gymnasiums, like a couple of the elementary schools, have really for a couple of needs had need for like dividing curtains to come
Right.
down so that they can divide the space.
Right.
That was one of the items on here. I'm trying to think here. Like the maker spaces.
I like
that-
the maker spaces, yeah.
Yeah, remember we actually received a gift. It was a grant from a family member
Yep.
who helped us get a maker space started at Parker this past year. We want to completely build out that space and at the same time build one out at McCarthy. So McCarthy Middle School would have one too. John Morris is trying to finalize some numbers for that project. But that's like a lot of equipment and one-time setup that really would make sense for a one-time purchase.
I see you have the back-to-school supplies on here again.
Oh, that was another one, yeah. We received very good feedback on that last year. Did you?
Yeah, no, noticed it said district-wide. Would that include the high school this year?
Yeah, we're gonna try. I mean, we knew that the elementary and the middle last year cost in the ballpark of 75 to 80,000. I may come back when we get the actual request and ask for a little bit more, but, you know, it's manageable. At the high school, it is different. You know, it's like the elementary and the middle schools was, you know, like markers and folders and things like that. At the high school level, we're gonna ask what they can potentially use. I think high school students are more along the lines of, you know, maybe notebooks or, you know, folders and things like that. They don't get into the crayons and markers or whatnot. We might work with the departments again, because I don't know where we fully stand with, say, like math and like those special calculators they use. But no, these are requests that are currently in the works.
Yeah, calculators is a good idea. Question here on anything to do with technology. The cameras.
There are, so, yeah, so on the regular capital plan for
Yeah.
the summer, we have the third year of the security outfit. So the elementary cameras are already in that. In here, Bill has 3 different tech projects.
For example, the document cameras.
Yeah, so that was one of them. It was a district-wide one, I believe. Yeah, so you know like those, Linda, what are they called?
The ladybugs?
Yeah, like the ladybug type cameras that are in the
Document cameras,
classrooms.
Right.
We have a little bit of a hodgepodge of all different cameras throughout the district, and obviously this year we've been using them quite a bit. So Bill has worked with the company to basically account for replacing all of them in the district so we could standardize with a unit, because we're still gonna be using this technology next year.
Okay,
But that's
so
what that means.
my question on that is, none of this can come from grants, and we've thought about this in terms of, you know, it's coming out of our budget spending and not out of these one-time COVID type of things that were meant for technology and so on. None of it can come from there.
It's arguable that some of this stuff could come from different funding sources. We need to kind of have a strategy for how we want to expend, this roughly $3 million, or how we want to allocate it. There is the grants, like the ESSER grant that we received, we used one fully. We talked a little bit about how there's one that's going to go until 23 and one maybe until 24. Those are going to provide us flexibility next year. So if we don't spend them now, they carry over, and you would have that funding available next year. That could support technology, similar to this. It could support an interventionist, some type of a social, emotional type configuration in the school. So we have much more flexibility on grants because they run over fiscal years, as opposed to the local operating budget has to be expended within a fiscal year.
Okay, so essentially, yes, we could, but we're gonna spend the money now because we.
Well,
should
there's
spend this money.
certain monies that have certain timelines, and our local budget has to be spent by June 30th.
Okay,
The other grants just have more flexibility for us.
okay, and on this one-time spending, essentially, you've gone out to who? How do we reach the compilation of this list?
So again, this would start like sometime after the holidays, the January timeframe, when we start to meet with all the different department coordinators, the building principals and admin, and we put together our regular operating budget. At the same time, we ask them to identify one-time spending within their school. So like one example that's on here, the third one down, we talked a little bit about, for a number of years, Center School has been trying to
Right.
upgrade their playground. So this has been on a list that Diana, the principal, has had for me for a couple of years now, and I haven't been able to advance it. I think it would make sense to help them out. We're looking at a between $150,000 to $200,000 project overall. Because of where it is, there's some wetlands involved, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. The PTO is trying to work to raise $50,000, and I think they're in good fitting to do that. I think if we were able to allocate $100,000 and then work with the town to go to the CPC for potential funding for the other 50, they've funded projects like this in the past, and it would look like a nice partnership. That's why something like that is on here, because it was identified by, the principal. It's been on for a couple of years. That is the elementary school that doesn't have a newer playground at this point. All the other ones do. And that made sense to put on the list.
Okay, so essentially, you've reached out to coordinators, to the building administrators, the principals and the assistant principals and so on.
Correct. Yeah, like our whole admin grouping. And then they go back and work with their staff to identify projects. Now, some of the projects also would be small scale. So you might have a department that goes and works with a group of teachers and identifies something smaller within their department. That might only cost, $2,000 or $3,000. When those requests come in, if we can actually fulfill them within our own local operating budget, and it doesn't require a transfer, and it doesn't require one-time money, we'll kind of knock off those items, and they don't even hit this one-time list. So there were a lot of smaller projects. Joanna, do you have a couple like ideas of what?
Sure, like, they wanted to do, Peggy wanted to order more like stethoscopes and things like that. So we'll just go ahead and do that. The art department wanted to order more, something to do with the pottery and clay, part of the art class.
The wheels.
Yep, so we'll just go ahead and do that because overall our supplies and equipment for the classroom, for those disciplines are favorable, but, they weren't planning on doing it, so they just said, is it okay if I do this instead? And we're gonna say yes.
Because, for example, one of the items that kind of surprised me that was on here would be something like the AP psychology textbook. So just wondering if, everybody has been approached on to make sure that, all of these things, that's an important one.
Right, no, it is.
Those type of things.
What we've done historically, and even last year, like, we were gonna do that big curriculum adoption with the new reading program at the elementary level, and we had earmarked a piece of that for the local, actually, we were trying to do everything in the local budget. Budget got tight. We had one-time funding, so we funded, I think, about 3/4 of it from the local budget. I'm sorry, 3/4 of it from the one-time funding, and then the rest came from the local budget in '21, the current year.
Okay, yeah.
But we know that at this point, Linda, I think the 7th and 8th grade, we're
Yep.
going to try to do the program extension. Yes, we could include it in the local budget as like a textbook adoption or a new material adoption. But where we have, that's kind of a 1-year, I consider that one-time funding, because when you do the adoption, the materials are gonna be here for 5+ years. You know, it's not, there's no cost in year 2 or 3 or 4. You're doing an adoption, and it's gonna last 5 to 10 years. So that would be like a good one-time spending. There's money in here for you can see, you know, the FPC classroom adoption,
What does that mean?
grades 5th and 6th. That's the
Fontes
Fontes
and
and
Pinnell
Pinnell.
Okay.
So it's
I was
like the
gonna ask that
elementary
question.
program now moving up to 5th and 6th grade. So this, it would be a great one-time expense, because if we don't fund it here, we're gonna have to fund it in the local budget, which we don't have capacity right now. That's not an allowable expense under any of the grants, because it's regular curriculum materials that you should have, so that wouldn't qualify into like an ESSER grant or something like that. So that's really a good one-time use for spending here. Oh, you were asking about the AP textbooks, though?
Yeah.
So the different department coordinators work with Linda, and they have kind of like a listing of like how often they rotate different materials. And that particular group was looking for new textbooks for next year. So if we weren't funding it here, we'd be trying to look in the local budget to fund that. But where we have funding available now, I would rather make the expense out of one time. We can get the materials quickly, and then that may free up money in next year's budget if we need to target it or reallocate it to something else.
Okay. So it includes all coordinators, everybody who
Yeah.
has been reached out to.
Yes.
So,
We all add to like a big kind of one-time funding sheet, and we'll talk about it and try to fund just about everything on there that we can.
Other questions? Are we gonna have to put any money aside to contract with Adora and Whittier, or contract with somebody about strategic plan, or,
We will.
okay.
I mean, I'm trying to put feelers out right now to just see like what a ballpark budget for those would be. Because again, even by doing some of this, we're gonna be freeing up money
Okay.
next year in the '22 budget, so that we could reallocate when we get in there. I'm not thinking that the Dora and Whittier project won't be anything to the scale of what it was the first time, because that was when they had to have all the engineers and architects come out to look at the schools to do all their reports. They're now gonna come in and actually kind of like spot check what we did to kind of see if it aligns with the report, do some of the visioning sessions, so I think it's gonna be a fraction
Okay.
of what it was.
Because I know it was expensive the first time.
It was about $200,000 the
Yeah,
first time. It will be less than a quarter of that going forward. Because again, it won't be a long-term engagement, but we'll have to work with them on that.
All right, any other questions? Everybody okay with the general premise of
Yeah, I
taking
think
half the money and spending it
conceptually, if we
on
could.
this type of thing, and half to prepay tuitions like we did last year? Everybody-
Yeah, I mean, I think, I like the idea of setting aside that money. I think we just need a plan
Well, I agree.
for, you know, and if, you know, we could talk maybe about that after this school year's over, so that parents understand, you know, what the plan is gonna be for assessing what needs are
Yeah.
and what type of intervention we're looking at providing. I would think that would be great. I think the one-time expenses are fine. I have a couple thoughts on some additional ones,
Yeah.
but I can run those by.
Yeah, and honestly, we're still working on this, right? So I mean, if you've heard things or if you have ideas, let me know, even between now and the next meeting. More than happy to talk about them and let you know like where it falls into the prioritization or whatnot. You look like you got some
I'm just
ideas over there.
smiling
Okay.
and laughing, because this is like, never mind, I'm not gonna say it. I think we
But
should
let-
get
but-
new equipment for here for sound. Just add it on to this whole
I
thing.
knew somebody was gonna say it.
I really think you should.
We are working on it. We are working on
Is
it.
that even us, or is that television?
Didn't they just do some upgrades?
We did, we did. Yes, I promise you, it will be better. And I do think we're at the point we need to get away from this online. So we'll try to work to have more people be in person. But no, we are doing upgrades to the system, and I know that's.
TV, they do an incredible job. They help us with so much, and I don't think it's their fault. I think it's something in here.
It's the equipment between
Yeah.
here and the room where they're broadcasting. It's no one's,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm putting
I'm
blame on
kidding
anyone.
around
No, I know.
in terms of that, but
They really do a very good job, so it's not that, but there's obviously some kind of an equipment thing that's not
Mm-hmm.
working. Over the last week, the vacation week, they were in here redoing a lot of the stuff in the head end room. Obviously, something isn't working properly, so we need to get that fixed. But yes, and if you have other ideas, please reach out to me, as we can kind of work on this over the next couple of weeks. Again, this is just a projection at this point in time too. Things are gonna change over the next couple of months. But I think, strategy-wise, if we spent about half the money on one-time expenses that we really need, and this is not wasteful spending, so if we spent it on one-time things we really need, I think that'll help. And then we're freeing up so that we can reallocate some money next year to these needs. And to your point, Donna, I mean, we're gonna be spending a lot of time this summer, even just looking at the different, like, the benchmarks, the assessments that we've done, identifying what those needs are gonna be, to then put a plan together for the fall. We just don't have all the data yet, because we just haven't closed out the year. But no, that is the work that is gonna be occurring.
With regards to this one-time purchases, have we talked to the DPW, like, I know we have some capital projects that are in process, and then I'm assuming they'll be involved in some of these.
Yes.
So, have Brian and the DPW
Yeah,
talked?
Brian and DPW will work together on these and figure out, like, there's so many projects that sometimes different people will take the lead on a different project. But like, one of the projects on here relates to McCarthy. We're obviously redoing that auditorium, and it's gonna come out great. One of the things that Telemedia had as kind of like an add-on to the project was, if they could add fixed video to that space so that they could, record something live, even like remotely. So one of the things that we put on here to help them was, it's about $60,000 or so for some fixed camera video. That was really not part of the larger capital project, but it'll be useful for the school during the day, as well as like productions and rentals and things in the evening. So that's something that made the list, kind of a one-time cost we can support for that project. Brian is the one that was kind of taking the lead on the auditorium project, so he would pick up that piece.
Okay.
If you have time and you're over near the Parker, they're just finishing the kitchen renovation over there. That was a capital project. That was something Melissa and Kathleen were taking care of in the DPW side. It came out great. They're still hooking in all the stuff, all the equipment, but it really is, it's beautiful. It's a fun space. And that was something that, like, they would just speak with Brian about and kind of keep each other in the loop. But with just so many projects, they're kind of taking that one. Brian took McCarthy, and we'll be doing the same with this.
All right, thank you.
And like Donna said, this does take some of the things off of our capital list, so that's, in the end, it's less that we have to go to front of town meeting to ask for, because we're able to take care of them now, so I think that's another benefit of doing it this way.
I agree.
So, do we have to do anything as a committee for this, or just?
No, just conceptually, again, I just wanted to see if you kind of agreed with the half and half philosophy. What we'll do is we'll refine these projects, more numbers. We'll probably present the first wave to you next Tuesday for approval with the proper transfers. And then we'll probably come back to you in May for a second time as we're looking to close out things. If you have other ideas between now and then, please let me know. And if we can try to work with you on incorporating them, we will.
Okay.
All right.
Budget transfers next.
Yeah, I'll actually turn this back over to Joanna. We do just have one smaller transfer and then a secondary transfer this evening as well. We're recommending on the larger transfer to, again, pay the CHIRF principal and interest bond payments out of local budget this year as opposed to the revolving fund, to just not, kind of kill and wear down the revolving fund where we haven't been able to generate the rentals because of COVID that we normally would. So this is basically going to move money into the account in the local budget that would be appropriate to pay for the bonds and interest payments. This is the same thing we did last year. And Joanna has those written up for you, so.
Thank you. So the first one is just the small, $1,316 between two South Row accounts. She would like to purchase some more walkie-talkies. And then the second one is for $90,600 to transfer from, since we're favorable in transportation, to this category you had approved last year. It was new civic activity and community service, to pay for the bond payment, which is $80,000, and then the interest payments is $10,600. So for the both transfers, it would be $91,916.
Okay, any questions before we go on with this? All for the transfers. Are we gonna be able to rent the fields now? I know with Governor Baker now allowing for sports tournaments and all that, is that?
Yeah, they have.
Okay.
Some of the, like, the regular rentals are already starting to come back. I saw some of the, like, soccer leagues and lacrosse leagues and things are already starting to pop up on the schedule. So, no,
Okay.
they have resumed. We really just didn't get anything this past fall.
Right, I can't see how you would.
Rental-wise, which is a big, and I think everyone understands that, but that's a big rental window for us, and it just didn't happen. But I do think we'll be in better shape this spring, going into the summer as well.
Right, so I'll take a motion.
I make a motion that the school committee vote to approve the FY '21 local operating budget transfers totaling $91,916 as presented.
A second?
Second?
Second, okay. All right, any further questions or comments on this? All right, Donna?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Maria?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0.
Great, thank you. I just have a little a return to school update for you this evening, if we can walk through that. Yeah, it is up on the board for you, and it's viewing at home if people want to see it. So when we take a look, so we were on vacation last week. So we do have, when we get there, we do have community data for COVID, but we don't have the DESI COVID data. They don't report on school vacation weeks. So they'll do a 2-week report this Thursday, and kind of a catch-up period. But as you could see, to make the chart readable, I knocked off 4 or 5 weeks in January before we were previously reporting. We started to have a little uptick towards the end of, this is just Chelmsford in general, not the schools, but in Chelmsford. Higher uptick in late March, right through last week. Last week was the first week that it started to dip down again. So that was the first week that we were lower. But we have seen, certainly more since the winter months. Our numbers did start to climb. Again, regular conversations with Sue and the Board of Health around these numbers. These are community numbers, so these are students and parents, staff who live in Chelmsford, who go to the Chelmsford Public Schools. Some of them go to other school systems, some of them are residents. But as a town, we definitely did see our COVID numbers creep up a little bit, and hopefully we're going to continue to see them on the decline. I do think as more and more people become vaccinated, obviously, we're going to start to see those numbers go. I just don't know exactly where the tipping point is. I'm happy that the number did drop again below 5% overall, and we're trending down as a town. When we get to the school numbers, I'm still very happy with where those are trending. But town-wise, at least we're going in the right direction at this point. I'll be curious to see what Thursday's numbers look like. And this is something that we obviously continue conversations with the Board of Health about.
Well, you're gonna go into the schools. I don't wanna ask you at the wrong time, but I have received several notices this week regarding, cases for individuals that did not directly impact my student in the sense of, they didn't have to quarantine and so on.
Okay.
But we received, I think, 3 notices this week. So that's not reflected in this data right here?
No, so the reporting period is Thursday to Wednesday.
Okay,
All right, so last Thursday, we're technically on vacation, so last Thursday through tomorrow will be reported next week.
okay.
And I think that is confusing, not saying for you, but for like some parents and even people that look at the different dashboards, because I'll get an email every once in a while that says, well, I know a student, I got a message on Monday that someone was, COVID positive in the school, but you don't see it on the dashboard. And the dates don't always line up. So that is something. We tried to have our dashboard line up with the DESI dates, so that if someone went to our website, they're seeing the same information on the DESI website, and there wouldn't be a disparity between the two. So it technically is running a little bit late. It's last Thursday through this Wednesday is going to get reported a week from now.
Okay. It appears to be that this is, activities outside of the school that are leading to these positive tests.
Right.
Now, are there any change in the trend on school districts requiring any kind of participation in the pool test in order to be part of the activities?
No, so do you want me to get to the pool testing first and then we can talk about it?
Wait, sure.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right. So general town certainly went up. I think we are hopefully going to see a little bit of a decline. When we looked at our school numbers on the next page, so these are This is not the COVID pool testing. This is any positive case in a school setting that affects the school day, whether it's a staff member or student. And again, coming back in February, we were seeing relatively low numbers, actually very low numbers. Up until, the week of 3/25, the town had spiked, and we also had 15 cases that week. It then came down very quickly. We only saw one case the following week, and then going the week before vacation, we had 9. So, overall, those certainly are confirmed cases. We're still not seeing spread, though, within the schools. So these are isolated cases. When the individual is removed from the school setting and they're quarantining, and even the individuals we're identifying as close contacts are quarantining, they're not further developing positive cases. So that is actually positive, ironically, for us, that they're not spreading.
Were those numbers, those 9, concentrated in a particular grade level, or was they spread across the district?
Um,
Were the 8 students or whatever are they?
That is on I don't have in this PowerPoint presentation, on our website.
Okay.
I list the cases, the 9 of them, by school.
Okay.
I just honestly forget which.
I just didn't know if they were at the elementary school, because we had the kids coming back full-time, or if they were at the high school, because the high school was still.
Yeah, they weren't, if you want, I can pull it up in a second. I have a feeling that about 5 of them were at the high school, and the rest were kind of sprinkled through the district. But we didn't have a cluster in any one particular school. I can pull that up for you, though, because we do report it school by school. And then the pool testing initiative, obviously, for the individuals who are participating, it's been very good. We've had 5 weeks of pool testing data leading up through the vacation, so we're now into week 6. We've had over 4,500 tests be administered to staff and students who are voluntarily participating in the pool test, and we've only had 3 positive cases out of those 4,500. So that is extremely low. That is an extremely good rate, and that .07 is the number that I'm more concerned with a little bit compared to, like, say, the Chelmsford overall number, because I don't want to see COVID in the schools, and I don't obviously want to see COVID spread in the schools. So this one is critical to me. I think what we have to Maria's point, we have to still increase the participation level, though, at the elementary, the middle, and the high school. We really have pretty strong participation at the elementary school level. Middle school level's fairly well as well. High school is lagging behind. So we have to find ways to get more high school kids to participate. I'm very happy, like I said, overall, with the numbers that we're receiving. But if this is going to continue to work, and it's not costing us anything, but it does cost a lot of manpower to kind of pull this off. And if it's truly going to benefit us and potentially identify someone who's asymptomatic and get them out so that it doesn't potentially impact the school, that's what we've got to keep shooting for. So I know the schools have continued to kind of push their messaging. I'm going to continue, even for the last 6 weeks of school, to push and encourage people to join a pool, to try it. I'm hoping we're going to get those numbers up, as more kids start to come back to school. Obviously, the elementary have been in for a couple of weeks. We're going to be switching. We just do the pool testing once a week. Right now, we were splitting the cohorts, some were Monday, some were Thursday, based on when the kids were in. But like at the elementary level, where they're in now for the 5 days a week, we're only pool testing 1 day a week. So that's why you see typically the first day of the week's numbers are so much higher than the second week's numbers. And it's going to continue to go that way, because like once McCarthy and Parker come online tomorrow, next week's pool testing will be done earlier in the week. They won't do one at the end of the week. And then when the high school comes on May 3rd, it'll be the same. They'll probably do pool testing early on in the week, because they want to be able to identify if someone does come back positive. They want to quickly be able to access that individual or that pool, do the follow-up test to identify who the positive case was, and to be able to quarantine. So that's what's been critical. So we certainly do need to try to increase the participation level. It doesn't cost us anything. It's very good data. There certainly seems to be a little bit reluctance as students get older in the school system, but we have to put that push on. We're getting very good results from it, but it's only going to be really valuable if we get the greater majority of students participating.
Is the pushback coming from the parents or the students?
I don't necessarily know, and I don't even want to categorize it as pushback. It's just they're not participating for some reason. And we haven't gotten to the level of like why they don't want to participate, if they're just adamantly opposed to it, or they don't know enough about it, or it's, from an
Prohibitive?
education, what?
Prohibitive?
Uh-huh.
It's what?
I mean, I'll just point out that there's, dozens and dozens of 6, 7, 8, 9-year-olds that can stick the Q-tip up their nose, and we have high school kids that are not willing.
Yeah, I'm just saying overall on numbers, participation-wise, are less
No, I
at the
get
high
it.
school, And again, it could be an education piece we need to do. We are starting to see like high school kids actually go for the vaccine. So I think a lot of them feel like if I'm vaccinated, then I don't necessarily, have to participate in pool testing. I am gonna be working with Peggy and obviously the admin staff to kind of figure out how we can keep messaging this, and getting those participation levels up.
So a question I did have was, if a person has been vaccinated, if a student has been vaccinated, they're welcome and should still participate in the pool testing.
I would recommend
That
it.
is one thing, I think so. And then, my other question is, in terms of the participation level, I hope people would really think about the fact that starting May 3rd, when everybody is going to be returning, and do we know percentages of who are returning and so on in high school?
No, I can produce that for you next week when we
Okay.
meet.
So,
We-
once we know that, to see if there's an increased number of students coming in and so on. But there will be an increase in the number of people in the building at
Oh, yes.
absolutely, at one particular time, and eating together and all of those types of things. That folks would realize how important it is that in order to really keep this successful, have a graduation, do the things that we want to do as we transition towards the end of this year,
Right.
and give everybody an opportunity to truly experience the rest of this year in a good way, to please participate in the pool testing. I am wondering if one of the concerns is this: okay, if my student pool tests and my student is participating in activities and there is a positive result, then my student will not be able to continue to participate. And if that is what it is, and it's simply because parents are also concerned that they're gonna have to miss school, they can't remote in.
Right.
Is that correct?
That is correct, Bill. To your first point, though, before I forget about it, to be honest with you, that shouldn't be a concern, that if a pool tests positive, the student is gonna be excluded or they can't participate, because now we have the BiNext rapid test that we do. So if you're identified in a pool as positive, let's say you test on Monday, Tuesday we get the results back, and your pool is positive, right? Even though it's only happened 3 times, let's say it happened to you. Those 6 or 8 or 10, however many students were in that pool, immediately come to the nurse's office. They do the BiNext test, which takes 15 minutes. If you're negative, you go right back to class. If you're the positive person, you actually have COVID. It's not even a matter of being a close contact. You need to go home and isolate and quarantine and follow the protocol. So it would only be, I guess, trying to protect someone if they're an asymptomatic carrier, but just that individual, not really even a close contact. So I think even like in our messaging, perhaps if we're pushing that message, that just, you're not gonna get like snagged as a close contact and then have to quarantine. Before we had the pool testing, you can actually now come down, get that quick test, and then be able to go right back to class
Okay.
if you're the negative one. It's only if you're the positive person that you have to go through the protocol.
Okay, so that's really important
I
to
wanted to
point
mention that
out,
to you
'cause it's a
before.
quick, no,
Right.
I'm glad you're
Before I
doing it,
forgot,
this
yeah.
is why I'm asking the question. So it would be a quick, pretty quick
Yep.
thing, you would know right away, and it's right there.
Right.
Then, if that's so, and your student goes home and has to quarantine and so on, follow the protocol, they're allowed to remote in, is that correct?
Yes,
Because it's COVID.
COVID related.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so the only way you're not allowed to remote in is if it's not COVID, you just decided to take the day off.
If you have COVID yourself, or if you're identified as a close contact of
contact.
someone with COVID, you may remote into the class, even if you're a in-person student.
Okay,
If you just decide to travel, right, on your own, you just decide to travel and you want to be able to log into the class while you're in Disney or something like that, that you can't do.
okay,
Those students are just marked absent for the day. They don't have the ability or the right to kind of log into their class. And that can happen, but they're just gonna have to take a traditional sick day like they normally would have. But if you have COVID, if you're a close contact, yes, you remote into the
And
class.
remote in. Okay, thank you.
I think part of the problem is, I mean, we know that there's many asymptomatic people out there,
Mhm.
right? So I think part of the message has to be, yes, you may run the risk, even though you're asymptomatic, of being, testing positive and finding out that you have COVID. And you may be fine, but you may transmit it to somebody else in your
Right.
class or on a team that is not going to be fine. Because I think that sometimes, what, I think it's, and the word I used was prohibitive, because,
Oh, I didn't hear what you
yeah,
said.
if you don't know,
Right.
you don't have to do anything.
But I wholeheartedly agree with you, but I guess I'm still at the point where, even if I was asymptomatic, I would want to know, because not only would I not want to affect my classmates and staff,
Right.
but I wouldn't want to affect my family
Right.
at home,
Right.
so I would want to know to be able to have my family be safeguarded as well.
Right. And I think that's part of the message that we need to get out, why it's important that, even though you may be fine, it doesn't mean that everybody around you will be.
Correct. And for some reason, right now, I know so many people who, for some reason, right now, and I don't know why, that have COVID. Not that I've been in contact with in person and so on, but I just know of it. And a couple of pretty serious situations, so it hasn't gone away.
Right.
Now, is this something we would consider continuing in the fall if COVID is still around? I mean, does he talk about continuing to pay for it?
Well, I think we're going to have to, at the end of the school year, let's see how successful this was as far as our participation rates and whatnot. DESI has agreed to pay for it through the end of the school year, so there's not a cost that we're incurring for it. I don't know where we're going to be at yet at that point, if this is still going to be like widely available. I mean, pricing could come down. I don't know if they're also going to say, like, if your district can sustain such a participation level, it makes sense to do this and, we'll pay for it. If we only have a 10 or 15 or 20% participation level, I don't know if we're really capturing, and we continue to get all these negative pools. I don't know that we're really capturing the group that we need to be capturing. And I don't know how we go about really getting that group engaged. So I think we'll have to monitor it over the course of the summer and just kind of see where, even as a community, we're at. I do think there's a very good likelihood that the majority of who want to be, the majority of like high school age kids by the fall should be able to be vaccinated if they elect to be. So this, as much as it's an issue like high school level now, it may not be as big of an issue in the fall as it is now. So we're going to have to watch that too. If we were getting great participation and we're really kind of heading off these cases, I would say, yeah, this is certainly something worth doing, even if we had to expend funds for it. Let's see where we're at the end of this and figure out what makes the most sense.
You brought up the vaccination. Has there been any guidance or anything that we would need to know about in terms of reporting whether a student has been vaccinated or not been vaccinated to the school? How is
Not yet
that?
at this point. I will follow up with Peggy. What we've been doing is really working largely with the staff right now on that aspect, coordinating to make sure that they've gotten vaccinated if they want it. We know the dates of, when they're fully immunized, the 2 weeks after the second shot. But no, we're going to have to probably start to track that information for students as well. I'll ask Peggy. I don't believe we're there yet. But that will be interesting to begin to track.
That would be important. The other thing to let folks know, just from personal experience, my daughters went to Lowell General, and it was a smooth process. Very, very smooth. So if folks are looking for appointments and so on, I really recommend highly looking to see if there's an appointment available there. It was wonderfully done.
I went there, it was great.
That's where I went.
It was excellent.
Yeah, it was great.
That's a very big community service they're providing.
I agree.
It was great.
Anything else on pool testing? Okay. Returning to full-time,
Yep, just a little reminder, we had our little staff meeting this afternoon, but everyone is excited about the middle school kids coming back tomorrow. So tomorrow is their first full day back in the buildings, 5 days for those who
Yay.
elected for it.
Sorry, what? Sorry, go ahead.
And then on next Monday, we'll be welcoming all the high school kids back that wanted the full
Yay
day,
for
so Monday
Maria.
the 3rd. So it's gonna be a busy week. Tomorrow's gonna be exciting and busy. Next Monday is as well. For Tuesday night's meeting, we should have everything rolled over in the system.
Okay.
So I can tell you like percentages of how many kids remained fully remote, how many decided to come in. I just couldn't do that for this because we're still rolling over.
How about the middle school still?
I can probably produce that for you tomorrow morning. But no, I'll have that for Tuesday because they were even working on just refining
Does it
that.
seem like it's like the middle school, like an 80-20 or 75?
I hate to guess. I mean,
Yeah,
yes,
okay.
it's gonna be similar to that. You're gonna be in that, 75 to 80, percent range. I believe are requesting to come back full.
Great.
But I'll update middle school numbers and high school numbers like I did the elementary, for next Tuesday night.
Middle school's all set for furniture and all that stuff, and
Yeah, that was a little bit crazy too. Similar to the elementary schools and trying to get everything set up, but they got all set up over the vacation week. So they're in good shape. Their CAFs and gyms are set up to be able to be the temporary CAF spaces. I think people are going to be trying to go outside as much as they possibly can. So yeah, it'll be interesting. But we'll send some pictures. We'll update you in the weekly newsletter, and then like I said, we're really looking forward to tomorrow with the middle school kids and Monday with the high school students.
any questions on the return? All right, getting closer.
Yeah, it's exciting. It
Closer.
is. It is.
All right. The website was,
I have next. I just gotta find my
I
agenda.
think it was a
sorry.
website, but I'm not in the packet.
Personnel report.
Oh, there's, yeah,
Yeah, it's supposed to be the,
on the quick website update for you, there's no report, it was just more of a date. I know we've been talking about this for quite some time, the new website. We are at the launch phase, so we're going to be starting this process this weekend. It's a multi-day process, so don't wake up Saturday morning and expect everything to be 100%. We have to repoint all of the websites, the pages from the old site to the new site. It'll take 2 or 3 days for everything to be complete. But May 1 is the official launch, so a lot of this will be happening behind the scenes Saturday, Sunday. But it will still take like Monday into Tuesday to finalize everything. But by next week, we should be transitioned over to the new website, new web format. All the different departments and schools are going through their content to just give it one last look to make sure it is looking good. And then, obviously, it's a work in progress, so we're still gonna be figuring out what resources we wanna add to the site, all those different things through the end of the school year, and then be 100% really ready to go as it being our informational tool for the start of the next school year.
the address is gonna change, right?
Yeah, so we did change the name of the address. I don't want to give it out right now because we're still working on that piece of it.
Okay.
The old address is going to point to the new one.
Okay.
So eventually, yes, I'll send out that message, but it's a little easier than the whole k12.ma.us exchange. And the old one, if you still have that bookmark, is just going to lead you to the new site. But that work will start this weekend.
Can't wait.
No, it's been a long time coming, but I think Chris has been doing a lot of work. Chris O'Donnell, our media guy, has been doing a lot of work with the site. He's very happy with how it's coming along. And again, we want to get it out there, get feedback from the public, see what additional resources we might want to look at. And again, my goal is really to have this be 100% functional and ready to go with the information people want for the start of the school year. And we'll take this next few weeks for feedback and go from there.
Any questions on the website?
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, should be nice.
All right.
And then, last thing for me is just the personnel report for the month of March. Cheryl in the personnel office provided that for us. And again, this is, March wasn't, not too much activity taking place. New hires, a lot of these individuals are your interim staff that are gonna help us between now and the end of the school year. A couple of resignations, and then we had an assignment change. I think you'll probably start to see in the April and May reports where we have started our hiring for the fall, you'll start to see more names of people who are in positions for the start of the fall. The March information is largely people who are still helping us get through the end of the school year.
Questions?
How are we doing on that social emotional coordinator?
Good. We're making pretty good progress on 2 big searches. One is the SEL coordinator, and then one is the South Row principal, which is the other key one for us. Linda and a number of individuals last week did a second round of interviews with SEL candidates, and we're doing kind of finalist work on that this week. So I anticipate an announcement coming out very soon on that front. On the South Row principal side, they had interviews at the schools the week before vacation. It was difficult to coordinate some of the second round interviews over the vacation week, but we had actually finalist candidates in yesterday. So we're also now taking the next step with those candidates. So I would imagine within the next week, we'll have some announcements on those positions.
How about the position in the HR office on the data?
That one
Analyst.
actually, no, we still do not have that filled. There's some temporary individuals helping out. I do know at the end of this week, they have another round of interviews. So they're still actively vetting and looking at candidates. They just haven't at this point found the particular match. But we're hoping that comes soon as well.
Thank you.
Anything else on personnel? Nope, okay. All right, anybody have any liaison reports?
Next week.
Okay, I want to Center School PTO, like most PTOs, are working really hard with what they can do in terms of fundraising, in terms of providing enrichment. The big topic of their meeting was the playground, and really trying to fundraise and advocate for that. Hopefully they can raise enough funds, and with the help of one-time money here in CPC, maybe go for town meeting in the fall and hopefully get something done there. And the major issue there is just the landscaping itself is just deteriorating and washing away, and they're really, that's where a lot of the money's gonna have to go, is just kind of evening things out, leveling things out, and getting new grass to grow and that type of stuff. So they're they're excited. They know they have a big job ahead of them. They had their big Taste of Chelmsford. They did a calendar raffle. They sold almost 900 tickets on that, and they did.
Yeah, that was great.
Given the situation, they did great with that. And then they had their recycling day the other day. So I heard that was very successful.
It was very good. I was there for, you were there too.
And Harley?
We were there. Yeah, they actually, it was pretty steady,
Yeah.
I have to say, especially from 11 to 12.
That's
great.
also McCarthy, so that's
Yeah,
both
McCarthy.
Center and
Probably too,
McCarthy.
okay, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it
And
was
they
great.
doing
Very
another one?
well.
They already have another one scheduled for the fall, I think. I saw something on Facebook. They already have a
usually
date.
have 2 a year.
Yeah.
This was, I
And-
don't know the date. This was the spring one, and there is one usually in the
Yeah.
fall.
Yeah, no, I've already seen them advertising, so.
Yeah, that started the collaboration with PTOs, and I think that was amazing. And it's been for quite a few years. It was started by Chris Lefebvre, and then I followed her, and then it just kept on going, and we brought together the two entities at that point. And it's really, really been successful, and they've done a tremendous job with organization and everything in these years.
Yeah, they couldn't have had a better weather day Saturday. I mean, it was beautiful.
Beautiful.
Absolutely.
Good flow of traffic the whole day. It was good.
And it was Earth Day,
Yeah.
Yeah,
and so
Yep.
they coordinated it
Yeah.
with the other town events. So there was a lot going on in town that day,
it was.
between the hazardous waste drop-off, the Boy Scout drop-off, the electronics. I
Absolutely
cleared out my garage. It was fantastic.
It's great.
All right, any other liaison reports? Okay, any new items people want to bring up? We do have a meeting again next Tuesday, so if anybody has any agenda items they want to put on the agenda, let me know, and then maybe if we could reach out.
Hopefully they're not remote presentations.
Right, well, I'm going to say, maybe you or I can reach out to Sue Rose about whether we can have in-person public participation or not,
Oh, yeah,
how we
sure.
would set it up.
Sure.
What would be the best way to do that? And,
Okay.
And maybe, probably not for next meeting, but maybe for the meeting later in the month.
Yeah, I'm just visually thinking, like, even at the back of the room,
Yeah.
if we would have set up like a standing desk with a microphone, and people could come up and make their pitch, we know that the sound in this room is leaving fine, and the cameras are fine. So if they did that, we just invited them in, they either made a public comment, or they made their presentation using the boards, and then they could leave, I think that that'll be okay, but we can talk to
Yeah,
Sue.
let's talk to Sue and just see what her opinion is on it
Sure.
and everything. Okay. All right, everybody comfortable with that if we did something like that? Again, not next meeting, but,
No,
in the
that's
last
fine.
meeting or maybe
We
in
have to do
June.
something.
Huh?
We have to do something.
Yeah, either we gotta get the sound to work,
Right.
or we gotta do something.
All right, any public comment people received?
We did receive a comment about the kindergarten thing,
Right.
about the extension of the dates, supporting the July date.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
we did receive,
Yeah, I don't think she wanted read particularly.
I don't think she
in-
wanted read,
No.
but-
Oh, I haven't
yeah,
read
yeah,
it.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, right.
but it was there.
It's important to receive the feedback.
It's
Yeah,
important to get the
absolutely.
I wanted to make a comment that, I think we've all done a pretty good job about doing this in-person type of meeting, masked and so on. I really love the fact that now when I see folks in any place that's public, they really recognize me with a mask on, from these meetings, but I think it's been good, and I think that getting it to this level is a good one.
Can I
All
just
right.
bring up
Yeah, go
one
ahead,
quick
John.
thing
Yeah,
before we
absolutely.
adjourn? So Jeff actually brought this up. This is not my idea, but I am definitely gonna be the one to bring it up. So if we do get another 12 passenger bus,
Oh, gosh.
you guys can decorate your bus, but I think the school committee should
Oh,
decorate the
your own?
dash.
I
And then we'll let people
So
vote.
the trick or trunk or
The
treat.
gauntlet has been thrown, I
Yeah.
think, yeah.
Well, it evens the playing field.
It
as-
evens a little bit.
As the judge last year,
It's a trunk
2
or
years
treat.
ago, I
I-
We
didn't.
have trunks,
sorry,
we don't
trunk or
have
treat.
trunks.
Do you still
a
feel
trunk.
awkward about that or a
Well,
little
I just
uneasy?
felt, I didn't realize that I was walking into such an unfair advantage. So I think this balances it, and I think it's
I
only
like
fair.
it. I
Okay.
like it.
Gauntlet's been thrown for October, whenever that
Understood.
is.
We just need another bus.
Well, yeah, we get there. We'll get there.
All right, anything else?
That's it.
Okay, we'll take a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you very much.
Good idea, though.